The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Terry Murphy, and I am delighted to be your moderator for today's RISmedia's Broker Webinar Series. We sure appreciate your being on this call today. And you know, although every single one of these webinars is just loaded with great information and experts, today's session, it may be the top issue that most brokerages are facing today. And this session addresses the challenges in today's real estate offices for how to attract, grow, and retain top talent. And we're going to talk about increasing relevancy, how to really get that retention and that retaining working. You know, as our consumer continues to advance their demands for services, you know, our brokerages and our leaderships are looking for ways and systems to help our agents grow in their business and to help them centralize the many resources a company can actually offer. So ultimately, great services create great experiences for clients and customers, and we help our agents streamline their business and their service. So, hey, before we get started, there's a couple of housekeeping issues. Throughout the call, we'll be recording this great content, so you listeners out there will be muted. But if you have a specific question for any one of our guests, and we'll go into the introductions here in just a moment, or want more info, look at your control panel dashboard, which is on the right-hand side of your screen, and go to the questions area and type in your question. And then throughout the webinar, we'll be monitoring those questions during and again at the end of the presentation. So if you have a question for either of our panelists, who today is Rick Jeha or Nate Martinez, or from our great sponsor, Bill Yeaman, who's the President and Chief Revenue Officer from Imprev, just go ahead, type in their name, and we'll be sure to give them your questions. So take good notes, and be sure that if you got any of those questions, just load them up, and know that RISmedia will send you the link for the recording so you can go back and review. So feel free to be interactive and share your questions and your comments. Does that sound good? Hey, and speaking of our sponsor today, it's sponsored by Imprev Marketing and Automation. That's automation services for real estate with their president and chief revenue officer, which is Mr. Bill Yeaman. We so appreciate your support, Bill, for our programs and our industry. I also want to tell you that you want to stick around until the end, because we're going to have some great takeaways for you. And I'd like to welcome our panelists. So if you'll just stick with me, then we'll bring Bill back on. We've got Bill Yeaman, who is our sponsor. He's the president and chief revenue officer for Imprev, and we're just so delighted to have a great company like that sponsoring our webinar today. We've got a master coach and real estate agent, speaker and trainer, Rick Jeha. We're delighted to have you. Rick, say hello.
Hello, and I'm just as delighted to be on. Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, we're excited. I know you guys have some great info. And then we've got our star from Arizona, Nate Martinez. Nate's a RE/MAX broker owner and coach and a speaker with Workman Success. Nate, say hi.
Good afternoon.
We're glad to have you with us. So before we get into Rick, what I'd like to do is have Mr. Yeaman tell us a little bit about why and how Imprev does such a great job. That you really do have an amazing turnkey brand promoting the platform. Why don't you give us a few insights onto how Imprev is an integral part of the retention and the attraction program?
Great. Well, thanks, Terry. Thanks so much for that introduction. Very excited to be here and partnering with Rick and Nate on this really relevant content. I won't talk a lot about Imprev. I know we're here to pick the brains of Rick and Nate to hear some of their ideas on recruiting and retention. But just for those of you who may not know about Imprev provides a marketing automation platform that's really designed to provide agents with a set of services that gives them the ability to do world-class marketing, in essence, without having to lift a finger. So for instance, envision a world where your agent takes a new listing, and in a matter of hours, all the marketing for promoting that listing, whether it's print marketing, whether it's digital marketing, or whether it's social media marketing, is done and delivered for them in an email. So that's just our view of the world, and we'll talk later on about how we need to really reposition how we think about technologies for our agents, and reposition from thinking about providing them with a set of tools and a toolkit for doing things, and really turning that on its head and providing them services so they get what they need when they need it, as opposed to having to go out and find a tool that's going to accomplish the task they have at hand. So again, Terry, thanks so much for having us here, and look forward to the content from Rick and Nate.
Yeah, us too. Well, I got to tell you though, you're a bit modest. Over 20% of real estate agents in North America are on the Improv platform because the automation makes it easy to stay in touch, which we know connectivity is our key. But we're about to hear from Rick Jeha, and Rick, of course, is one of our just a brand new master coach with Workman Success Series. He's been selling real estate for over 37 years. He oversees the Rick Jeha real estate team, and he's in beautiful California. He began actually running and operating real estate offices and recruiting since 1993. A top recruiter at different times for companies like Century 21, Coldwell Banker, and Keller Williams. I just love when Rick speaks. He has we just got to keep him on decaf because he's so passionate. He loves to talk about mindset, inspiration, specifically lead generation, an expert on recruiting and retention and team structure. And the more important thing is building and sustaining teams and leadership lessons. Coaching for over 20 years, a master coach as of last month with Workman Success, two boys, 31 and 28, Anthony and Joseph, could be Italian. And married to the love of his life, who happens to just be an annoyingly beautiful blonde who's talented and sweet. Welcome, Rick. Glad to have you here.
Happy to be on. That was a very, very, very creative introduction. I'm excited to be on. As you know, this is one of my favorite subjects, so appreciate it.
Well, the important thing here is that we really enjoy having real life people who actually walk the talk every day. And one of the things that you talk about is from the very beginning, the get-go, the mind shift that happens when we look to hire, train, motivate, and retain agents. Why don't you go into that for just a minute?
All right, great. I will. I'm going to give a little background that way, not just to give a little bit of where I've been, and not because I certainly don't want to impress anybody, but give you an idea of what I base my comments on. In 1993, 13 years into my real estate career, I was asked to come and manage a small office. While it was a small office, it was one of 21 offices of an independently owned chain in Northern California. And my mentor at the time was a man who today is the CEO of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. His name was Gino Blafari. And I remember the lessons that we learned about the importance of recruiting. And more importantly, that the key to recruiting, the number one key to recruiting, and I didn't quite get it at that time, but as the years progressed on, I got it very, very firmly set in my mind that it's really difficult to be great at bringing in people in the front door if there are people walking. So I loved learning about how they meld together, the hand in glove. You understand, which is why I was excited that it was on call today. They have some wonderful, but they can automate things for the broker that's overwhelmed with their business. A lot of the people I coach, Terry, around the country are actually franchises where they're also running their own team and doing everything they can to support a business in terms of what they own. And what the pro I have, it's important to put aside time to enter the correlation when I say it's just as important to put aside time to actually recruit and the activities around it and some of the recruit. I was speaking to somebody the other day about recruiting for the first time. And you mean I have to start cold calling agents? And I go, absolutely not. That's not where we begin. And so I could talk for 8 hours in New York a few weeks ago, and I have a few minutes here. So what I really want to impress upon people is that recruiting, like Terry said in her introduction of me, is a mindset. In other words, it has to become a part of your fabric, a part of your fiber, part of who you are if you are planning on growing this. And it absolutely does not matter what company you represent or what franchise you represent. What matters is you are the leader of that organization. You are the one. The law of duplication and reflection show up in our business, meaning the people we're attracting into our business and into our lives are direct duplication reflection of who we are as people. So we have to start working on ourselves and becoming the kind of people that other people want to be around. That's number one. I want to stop right there, Terry, to see if you have anything to throw in before I continue for a couple of minutes. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and continue. So one of the things that I talk to people about when we're thinking about understanding recruiting is that they say, well, do I do recruiting first or do I do retention first? And my answer is always yes. The idea is that whatever I can remember back in 1994, I started a little program where every agent that was on my hit list, meaning people I was really hoping to recruit to the company I ran, and I didn't own the company, I was running it. Every person that I wanted to come over, I had my admin keep looking at the multiple listing service every day. And if she saw them get a new listing or something went pending under contract, that they would get a handwritten note. And I remember like it was yesterday that on a Thursday on tour day, one of my top agents in my office happened to bump into one of those agents I was working on recruiting on tour. And the guy says, you know, I love your boss, Rick. And he goes, how do you know my boss, Rick? He goes, well, every time I get a new listing or a new sale, he writes me a handwritten note. Well, my agent comes marching back to my office and says, what the heck? I'm your top agent in the office, and every time I get a new listing, a new sale, I don't get a handwritten note, but Tom over at, the other company gets one. So that's when I got that really hard-learned lesson that anything I'm going to do for my people that I'm recruiting on my hit list, I'm going to do for my people that are in my office. I always used to say that when's the best time to tell the agents that work for your company that you love them? And the answer was always right before another broker tells them that they love them. So you really, really, really got to have a mindset of having your people fall back in love with you every single day, and at the same time, be working on having people that are not in your company fall in love with you, your company, and what you stand for. And the last thing I want to throw on that before I stop for a minute is that people often say, well, what do I have to attract them with? Well, that question can only be answered by you. You have your compensation plan, you have your value propositions. Every company I've ever worked for had to have, that I was recruiting for, I knew we had to have multiple value propositions. But as the recruiter and the guy who ran the office, I had to be one of those value propositions. I had to be such that people wanted to work with me, wanted to be in the environment with me. So what is your value proposition? Maybe it's the culture of your office. Maybe it's the office itself. Maybe it's the location of the office. Maybe it's the town you're in. Maybe it's the school district you're nearby. But it's going to be something that people can sink their teeth into. People say, well, I don't have the best compensation plan. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if everybody wanted to go to the cheapest office, then everybody in the world would be at one office in your area. If everybody wanted to go to the highest end office, then everybody would be at that. Everybody's looking for what they're looking for. I always ask people, I say, the first thing that you want to do when you learn to become a great recruiter is to read a book called The Platinum Rule, that was written by Dr. Tony Alessandro in 1996. Still one of my favorite books today for getting my mindset around understanding what's important to others, not me. So those are the things that I want to set you up with. So I think that's good for right now, unless you feel like there's something else you'd like me to address.
Well, Rick, one of the things that we wanted to talk about in the hiring process is how important it is to, as a manager, to understand the behavioral style of those people. And so one of the key performance indicators for getting people involved and engaged in more of a culture is understanding their behavioral style, which is why DISC is such an important prerequisite, along with behavioral interviewing questions. And I know you're really good at that. So would you go into that a little bit?
Thank you very much. Yeah, I am so glad you reminded me to talk about that. And you worded it perfectly, Terry, and that is the DISC. The DISC is one of many types of ways to assess people's behavioral style. And in all of the years, when I first started recruiting in the 90s, I was not aware of behavioral assessments. But in the late 90s, I became aware of them, started using them regularly, meaning when I was working with somebody who, let's say they said, hey, Rick, don't bother recruiting me. I'm not interested in moving, but I really do like being in relationship with you. I feel like you bring value to the table. You're always talking about something interesting in the real estate world. You always have ideas about how to increase my business. So I'd say, hey, let's get you a DISC assessment, right? And that was one of the things I loved about the book, the Platinum Rule. And so we get them a DISC assessment. And now what did that teach me? Well, first I had to know what my DISC profile looked like. I had to know what my strengths and weaknesses were when it came to speaking, listening, and behavior. And I also had to learn it about them. That way I could speak in a way that I know they would hear me. In other words, if I understood their behavioral style, and this might be, a little bit more advanced in terms of lessons around recruiting, and yet it's one of the most helpful things ever. Reading the Platinum Rule will give you a little basis for it, because the Platinum Rule basically says the golden rule is do unto others as you'd like done unto you. And the Platinum Rule is no. That's an archaic rule, which is do unto others as others would like done unto them, not as you would like done unto you, because everybody likes to be treated differently. Everybody has different things that they find valuable. You know, you can ask 100 agents what's the most important thing about the office they work in, and you would get 100 different answers. So what the other part that Terry mentioned also that's important is, how do you interview? Any behavioral assessment doesn't actually measure for intelligence or integrity. What it does measure for is just their behavioral style. So if you want to understand, you know, are they an integrity person? Are they a person of intelligence? Have they handled issues before? You learn to ask questions that will bring out those strengths and weaknesses from that person, so that you know how best you can help them and how you can best attract them to your office. Because the one thing people feel really, really big about universally is, I've taught other people to recruit, and I've recruited myself, thousands of agents that I've recruited over the last 23, 24 years. I can tell you this, that they all want to be paid attention to. And what we have a bad habit of doing as brokers and recruiters and owners is, look at it like dating. When you're dating a girl for the first time, you go out, and when you're going out, you run around to the other side of the car and you open the door for her. When you get where you're going, you quickly turn off your car, grab your keys, run around the other side of the door, open the door for her, hold their hand while you're walking into the restaurant. You do all these great things. And then all of a sudden you get married and you're like,
Right.
Open your own damn door. Yeah, open your own damn door. I'm busy, right? Well, that's what happens in a lot of real estate companies, is we do everything we can to attract them. And once we're in, we stop paying attention to them, and we start paying attention to our next recruit. So it has to be equal yoking. I used to use the analogy of, if you wanted to get a canoe and roll across the lake, would you use both oars? Well, of course, if you only used one oar, the boat would go around in circles one way. And if you only use the other oar, the boat would go around circles the other way. That's what recruiting and retention are. They're like the equal yoking of running a canoe across the lake. You've got to use both oars.
Well, one of our attendees asked us to repeat the name of the book. The book is The Platinum Rule by Dr. Tony Alessandra. If you go to platinumrule.com, he offers a complimentary initial kind of assessment. So he's a good friend of ours, and I know, Rick, you've always been very appreciative of his work. One of the key elements that you and I spoke about in the recruiting process, when you're really doing a smart behavioral style interview, as opposed to, you know, I want to sell more property and I don't like my broker's coffee or whatever, is about having the habits of success, which we, of course, subscribe to as coaches. And of course, the daily success habits in the business plan, very often in many offices, the business plan is a one and done. We do it in January and then we forget about it until the following January. Let's talk about how comprehensive you are with your people about building and staying aligned with a business plan.
Barry?
Yes. Are you there?
Were you talking to me? My phone skipped out. So if you were talking to me, I didn't hear the question. I'm sorry.
The question is the business plan and the daily success habits, helping the agent understand in the interviewing process that there's key performance indicators that we're looking for, and that we want to help them not to be accountable in a way that helps them get where they want to be with the business plan and daily success habits. How have you found that to be very helpful in your recruiting process?
Oh, it's awesome, because I use both of those in many ways. First, I use them both. The daily success habits forms helps people have a sudden realization instantly when they look at the form, how little they know about what their daily activities are. They just know the day goes by quickly, and at the end of the day, if they had to measure what they did, they'd have trouble remembering. They never seem to have trouble remembering what they didn't get to, but they have a lot of trouble remembering what they did get to. And that form is excellent for that, for the lead generation side, and for in their personal business, and for kind of measuring what's going on every half hour of their day. We also use the daily success habits form in the recruiting sense, like what recruiting activities did you do today, measuring those, giving them points. And they're wonderful for accountability. Whether you're using a coach like myself from Workman Success Systems, or you're just being held accountable by another manager of another office near you, or someone else that you're kind of bantering with back and forth, it all works. The idea is understanding that accountability equals love, and that love helps you bring your business about. Now, the business plan, Terry, I'm so excited that you brought this up. I know we talked about it a couple of days ago when we were preparing for the webinar, is that I coach people to use the business plan, because a lot of brokers, maybe even on, I know a few brokers that are on this call today that are friends of mine that said they'd be on it. And I know they run their own successful team, and they're running an office and hoping to build it to where it's profitable enough, right? So I always say, look, do a business plan for your business, for your team, and do a business plan for the growth of your office. And also you can use the business plan workbook as a recruiting and a retention tool. Imagine going out with that that workbook, that business plan workbook to all your agents in the office saying, look, it's the end of the year. You got to start planning for 2018. Let's all get together and do this business plan together. I'll walk everybody through it. Let's plan a time. With your bigger producers, you want to do that one-on-one if you can. Now, the other way I use it is I use it for, that's a great tool for retention. I also use it for a great tool for recruiting, because I'll call the top agents on my list and they'll say, Rick, are you calling me again about recruiting me? I go, no. Actually, I'm not. I'm calling you because it's the end of the year. I know you're a guy who really looks at his business seriously. I have this amazing workbook that I use to put out my business plan for 2018. I thought you might want to grab a Starbucks and we sit down and chat about it. I'll show you what I did on mine. We can brainstorm, because I got to tell you, people that prepare their business plan on average do 65% better than agents who don't prepare a business plan. So,
yeah, that's a key element. One of the things that you do that's actually a tactical initiative that I think our other brokers would like to hear is this 3-letter campaign. And I thought that was I liked the fact that the elements were traditional. So why don't you go into what that actually means?
I am so glad you were moderating this, because all these great things I want to talk about, if it wasn't for you, they'd go without being said. So thank you, Terry.
You're welcome.
So the 3-letter campaign is something that I started doing back literally the first year I started recruiting, which was 1993. And back then, you know, email was not prevalent. So we did the 3-letter campaign through regular snail mail. And a lot of the people that I coach today still elect, even though they can use email, they still elect to use the snail mail version. But bottom line, the 3-letter campaign can be used in sending it out in the mail to the real estate agent that is on your hot list, to their office in a plain white envelope with no return address. And then if you want to do it by email, that's also okay. And what the 3-letter campaign is probably one of the greatest recruiting tools I've ever used in all my years of recruiting. And that is every agent that's doing a co-op with my office, meaning they are in a transaction with another agent that's already in our office. They get a letter at the beginning of the transaction from you, the owner, broker, manager, whoever the person of, even if you just have a recruiter and you are not involved, it's the person that's most involved with bringing new people on. And that person say, oh, hey, Tom over at, let's say, Coldwell Banker. Tom at Coldwell Banker, this is Rick over at Blank Real Estate Company. I am running the company, and I just heard you were in a transaction with our agent, that you just got this transaction approved. And I really, really, really want to congratulate you and let you know that we're here to help you get this closed. If anything comes up that you could use our help with, we're here. Now, the most important thing about these letters is that they don't go into a negative place. Like, you never want to say, if there's a problem during the transaction, make sure you give me a call, because that's inviting problems. So we always say, if you need anything, if we can be of any support, if we can help you move things along, just let us know, right? So we're here. That's letter number 1 at the beginning of it. Letter number 2 is in the middle of the transaction. And these are mostly governed by my admin and my staff. I don't usually take care of them. Middle of it, it goes, hey, it's been a couple of weeks. Sounds like things are moving along really well. We're just checking in to see if there's anything we can do to help you. I want you to know that I'm here. You can call me directly. And, you know, Tom in our office is saying such great things about you. So it sounds like things are going terrific. And that's it. And then the last letter is after it closes. It's congratulations. And this is very, very important. So catch this last part. You congratulate them on the closing. You say to them, since I heard you did such a great job on handling your end of the transaction, I have a little gift for you. And I'd love to meet with you in person to hand you that gift. If you could let me know what's a good time, I'd really appreciate it. And then I say this, if I haven't heard from you in a short amount of time, I'll reach out to you to find a time to drop the gift off. That's it. That's how we end that. And that gift, and I want to make sure I say this because I remember talking about it recently, and someone said, I don't remember what you said about the gift. The gift is most often, ladies and gentlemen, a book. The Platinum Rule, a John Maxwell book. What else do I use? Think and Grow Rich, As a Man Thinketh. There's a bunch of them. The Traveler's Gift by Andy Andrews. Lots and lots of great books that you can use as a gift. I always want to make sure it's a book I've read. And then what I like to do is a little trick, and Terry, I don't even know if I've shared this with you or Nate, but I go about 3/4 of the way through the book and I put a crisp dollar bill in there. And I say to them, I promise you, if you read through this whole book, I guarantee you'll make money as a result of it. And they don't really get that, like why I said that, because until they come across that dollar bill. It's kind of fun. It's just a little joking part.
That is a fun thing. Well, as we wrap up your segment, I hope you'll stay on with us because we're going to get into a collaborative session after Nate. But in the interview process, one of the key elements that you really drive home is the integrity factor. And I think today the shift has had to change because the consumer is looking for expertise. And we know that 50% of the world is 30 years old or under. And so that becomes the credibility, the transparency, the core values, the value propositions. Instead of more features, we're looking for that factor of high integrity. And in your coaching and in your consulting, tell us how understanding the core values of the company play to the integrity factor and who you hire.
That's wonderful. I appreciate it. Is that me or Nate that you wanted to ask, Terry?
I'm asking you because I've got Nate keyed up for coming on next.
Okay, great. Well, the thing that I look at there is when I'm working with a company for the first time, coaching someone who owns a real estate office for the first time, one of the first things I ask them is, do you have your core values established? And oftentimes they may have something for the real estate team, or they may have something in their head, but very seldom has it actually been put into writing and advertised everywhere, meaning it's on the wall in the bathroom, it's on the wall in the hallway, there's little frames on the desks in the office. Core values are vital, and I've never met anyone who didn't have an intention to have integrity be one of their core values, meaning that when I hire people as admin staff, or if I hire people to work as real estate agents in my office, I want them all to sign off on my value proposition, on my core values. And they can be things often like integrity, punctuality, community. I mean, you name it, you can come up with one, they all count. But they count as to what you and the people you work with believe. And most importantly, in fact, I don't believe I have any of my coaching clients, past or present, who did not have integrity, whether they use that word or not, as one of their core values. Once people start establishing their core values, they can learn about what questions are best to ask an agent coming on. I was talking to a guy who runs an office the other day, and he said, I don't want to be a body shop. And I go, you know, it's funny, in all my years of coaching and speaking and recruiting myself, everybody has a different opinion of what does a body shop mean. I go, would you mind telling me what that is? And he said, to me, a body shop is people who hire real estate agents to work in their office without any regard for their past. And I said, okay, that's an interesting description of a body shop. And I said, how do you get around that? He said, well, I like to ask them questions about their past. And I go, okay, do you have an example? And he froze up and he couldn't. I said, well, can I offer up some? And I said, how would you ask questions to determine someone's integrity? And I said, it's all about asking questions. You can't go, hey, are you a liar? Do you cheat? They're never going to answer the question like that. You say, hey, tell me about a time in your past where your enthusiasm about your real estate business and your clients got you into trouble. Right? Yeah, and then usually there's a little quiet moment. Yeah, and they'll go, oh, well, I got in trouble for this once, or I got in trouble for that one. And then I'll ask them to elaborate. The more general they are, the less true I tend to think it is. But if I ask them to be more specific, tell me what was the incident like, what happened, what was the property, what were the people involved, and they start answering, they're not hiding anything. They're telling you the truth. As I developed offices around the country and different franchises I worked for in the past, we used to ask the local alliance companies like title companies and mortgage companies and inspection companies. We'd say, make us a list. On the left side, make a list of everybody you would love to be in business with if you owned a real estate office. And on the right side, make a list of all the people you wouldn't want to be in business with if you owned a real estate office. And what we found is on the right side, if we asked 20 people in one area for that list, there would be 1 to 3 names that showed up on everybody's list on the right side. Well, that didn't mean we weren't going to hire those people, but we certainly wanted to be careful when we hired them to ask questions as to why did you show up on everybody's list as a person not to be in business with. Do you get that? So
good point.
These are all things that really help you to guide you through the process so that you understand My office is my office, and I'm not going to sell it out just so I can have another real estate agent. So.
Great. Those are great points. And this informative content is great for new vision, especially growing companies with top recruitment and retention strategies. But I don't want to I don't want anybody to not pay attention to the fact that what you were talking about was behavioral interviewing skills. And if you're not a good interviewer, you need to really focus on that, because it's more important than ever, as you said, and Bill said earlier in the session. Better to have really good agents come in the front door and stay than have a revolving door. So thank you so much, Rick. We always appreciate your great contributions, and it's always a pleasure and an honor to work with you. But I also want to tell you that we've got Nate Martinez, and Nate has been selling real estate in the Valley of the Sun for nearly 30 years. He's the co-owner of RE/MAX Professionals. That was founded in 2001. They have 4 Valley locations in Glendale, Surprise, Arrowhead Ranch, and Avondale. He never has to shovel snow. And Nate believes in education and giving back, as you'll be able to tell as he speaks with us. He likes spending time with his family. He's an avid sports enthusiast, loves attending concerts and practicing his golf swing. Well, you are in Arizona. His philosophy is much like Wayne Gretzky's. Why don't you just tell us what that is, Nate?
Well, I like to skate to where the puck's going to be, not to where it's at.
That's our Nate. Well, Nate, one of the things that we talked about with retention strategies is, and you've been obviously doing very, very well on that. You actually talk about making real connection. Let's talk about what that means from your perspective.
Well, I think owning a real estate company and been doing it since 2001, you learn a lot of things, and you can build people up, and you can push people away. So what we've always tried to do is have a set of core values and a mission statement that would align us with the right people, the right type of leadership, and the right kind of tools. So, I'm just kind of thinking about all the things that we do to, the retention strategies that we have. It goes anything from events to working with a top group of realtors through mastermind meetings. We have 3 separate mastermind meetings I could talk a little bit about. But we do training, and training is one thing, but what we do is training, coaching, and a complete agent development. We're really trying to take the agents from walking in the door, and we're a 100% company, but we have a lot of split programs. So it's really trying to find what the agent needs, trying to uncover what they don't know they need, and help putting plans together to create success. We've done a pretty good job of that. We've also grown individual agents that were maybe on a team to becoming an individual agent, to becoming a team leader. And we've had several agents go through our company and now own their own real estate companies. So even though it was hurtful to see them leave, we're very proud at our part in helping developing these individuals to be a professional in our industry. So,
well, you've talked about driving a culture of care, and I want to spend a little time on that, because you talk about how you do anniversary lunches, and I thought that was unique. I hadn't heard that before, and I've certainly been around the industry for a long time. Would you mind sharing what that means to you?
Well, one of our core values is recognition, is to recognize, right? And so, it's just a great time every month. It's the 4th Thursday of every month. It's a system. So everybody that joined our company, as an example, in the month of November, we'll get together for lunch. It's a system. We'll have anywhere from 10 to 12 people come to the lunch. We also have incorporated agents that have joined our company in that month. So we're immediately marrying a brand new agent with a seasoned agent in our company, and we're all breaking bread together and just sharing ideas. And there's usually 3 questions I ask, and one of those questions would be, what are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? What do you think we should be doing, right? So we're trying to learn from our agents and let our agents be our voice at creating our culture.
That's when we really speak to that, it's about active listening. And one of the greatest ways to penetrate community and to create that brand loyalty, which of course Improv helps you do with giving you the systems to help make those connections with clients and customers, is to help that agent grow. And one of your core values is training for success. And you've been around the real estate industry where there's training everywhere, but most of the training addresses salesmanship and not processes and systems that enable the agent to stay connected in a very digiphrenic world. So I'd like you to talk about Miss Sarah, who I know personally, who does your training, and what you actually do for your agents and how often.
Well, we have a system called Momentum, and Momentum is a very let me back up for a second. We trained before. We would talk about certain things like an expired program, or we talk about holding open houses or mega open houses. And we're basically given a concept. And what we do today is we start off with the vision of what the agent needs, and we sit down and find out what their goals are. And then we figure out what 10 different buckets do they want to get their business from, be it prospecting, cold calling, open houses, lead generation, internet leads. And we find out what they feel comfortable with, and then we try to build a curriculum that they can come to each one of these classes. So we have about 16 classes that Sarah teaches. She teaches them twice a week, but it's beyond just teaching the class. It's having a coaching call with them at the end of the week and finding out exactly, are they implementing the ideas? Because many of us on this call have been in the business for a very long time, and we go to a conference, but as soon as we get back from a conference with all these great ideas, the book goes in a drawer and the business takes over. And we want to make sure that our agents aren't just listening to the training but not implementing, because without action you don't have anything. So it's a very detailed process that we take our agents through, and because of that we do have a very high transaction per agent. We're mighty, but we're not large. We're a small brokerage, but we do, I think because of the training, our agents are very well developed.
Well, it's not even just that. May I speak to the fact that retention is about care? When traditionally we offer training so that they sell more, so that the brokerage makes more. And when the culture has shifted to the development of the agent, that clearly sends a message to them that they have value, and the fact that you recognize them. But I think you've kind of glossed over the coaching call at the end. You and I both know from Workman how the accountability piece works. And when people know people are watching or listening, they seem to respond even more. One of the ways, and I think, Mr. Yeaman, you said this so well when you said there's lots of tools out there. Why don't you finish that sentence? There's plenty of tools, but...
Yeah, there are plenty of tools that we as an industry provide to our agents, but most agents don't know what tool does what and when to use it, or even how to use it. So we at Imprev have really shifted our philosophy, and Nate is a user and a proponent of this, of really changing the conversation from providing tools to providing services, so that the agent doesn't have to lift a finger to get their marketing done, for instance. And then we think about the topic of recruiting and retention. There's nothing better to retain an agent than to be able to say to them, we're going to do all the marketing for you. And when they have the conversation with that broker down the street and they ask that question, who has to do the marketing? And the answer from that broker is, you do, the agent, they're going to stick with you. So we really think about providing those services in a way that is not about tools, but delivering the capability or the value directly to the agent's door.
And I know that, thank you so much for that, because that's really the truth. I mean, if tools were the key, everybody'd be thin, right? Because they're sleeping with a treadmill. That just doesn't usually help, though, if you don't turn it on. And the thing about today's marketing, and really, Nate, you do this so well, is that consistency, that brand promise that they know they're going to be able to get specific information at a specific time. And I think you probably are one of the best examples of how to engage your agents into this consistency, which builds that brand promise and brand delivery. Talk to us about how you're using listing automation.
Well, going back, the company that I belong to, it's always had a marketing system, but you had to go on there and you'd have to pick the flyer, pick the postcard. You'd actually have to type in the information. And what Imprev has done for us is basically we can list a house and put it in the MLS system today. Tomorrow morning, the agent wakes up, there's an email. as you can see on the screen here on the left. And it basically has a single property website designed for them, a Facebook ad, a flyer, jumbo postcard, a just listed postcard, an e-postcard, a virtual tour, all while they're sleeping. So it's like almost seems like we have elves in the back of our office working all night. And basically, it's basically a subscription that we have with Imprev. They actually make us look good. Before this process existed, we had to have a full-time designer on staff to do this type of marketing for our agents, which was costly. It wasn't as expedient as what we're experiencing today. So at the end of the day, the agent just wants it done. They want to look good, and they want to spend their time in front of buyers and sellers.
Well, having been a proponent of loving listing better than anything on the planet in my own career, I can tell you that the life of the listing is, I mean, just getting the listing is the first step, and then creating that connection to that seller so they have a wow experience, and giving that credibility that you're going to do what you're going to do, and having it done automatically, to me, makes really good sense. Can you go into this this piece of it a little bit more, and Bill, you can jump in whenever you feel like you got something you can add there.
Well, I think even in it, let's take it back a step, Terry. Let's look at in a listing presentation. When you're in a listing presentation and you're competing for the listing, can you describe to your client that you're going to have the postcard, the website, the Facebook ad done within 24 hours? It's kind of unheard of, and you can show them examples of what you're doing. So this screen basically is just showing from content creation to distribution. I mean, it's literally happening within 24 hours from the time that it's put into the MLS system, and it's all done, all created for them. And then as the process moves, let's say that you go through 2 or 3 weeks on the market, and all of a sudden you get a price change. Everything is updated, so the agent does not have to do anything. So he can send another Facebook post out, and the piece is already has the correct information on there. And then when you get to closing, you know, the just sold postcard is made, and the rest of the sold advertising is all set for the agent to take, and all they have to do is put it in place. So I would say, Bill, you could probably elaborate a little bit more on where maybe some of the stuff can automatically load into their YouTube channel and so forth.
No, I think you've done a great job describing it, Nate. Now, the only thing that I'd add is, again, we at Imprev continue to look for ways to provide more and more, again, services to the agent. So we've just enhanced our listing automation about 3 weeks ago with 3 additional listing events in the life of the listing. So when there's an open house, there's a set of marketing content that should be created that helps that agent promote that open house. For example, a series of Facebook campaigns that they can put on, a week before the open house and day of, to promote the open house and to promote the fact that they've got this listing in their referral network. We've now got a specific marketing package that gets created when we see a price reduction, so that the agent can use that to promote that reduced price. And most importantly, the other listing event that we now create a specialized package for is when the home is sold, because that's the point in time when an agent wants to promote the fact that they've not promote the home anymore, obviously, promote the fact that they've sold it in their market. And that's the way they're going to get that referral business, and they're going to find the next listing and the next listing after that. So we continue to look for events for which marketing is needed, for which we can automate the content. I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I've got to tell you, the fact that you can change and update, and if you're on this call, one of the things you can do, as the market might be a little bit slower a couple of days in December, is to revamp your listing presentation, clean it up, freshen it up with the kinds of automation that make you look like a rock star, because this differentiation really is a brand promise. And you'll see on the screen right now some of the samples of the pieces that have been mailed out for Just Listed. Can you speak to that, Nate?
Yeah, think about it. So you got a Just Listed postcard there on the left-hand side, and you have just a little property flyer that you could put out in a flyer box or on the counter of a homeowner's house. So this simple process, think about it. If you set your photos up in MLS in a particular order, this system is going to go grab your best photos and implement them right in. So what you're looking on the screen, I did nothing. All right, this was all done by automation, and it's there for us to utilize. So we can then print out, send the postcard to the printer and have it mailed, turn them into an postcard and email them out. So again, all the information, all the verbiage is coming from the verbiage in MLS and the customer remarks, the price, the bedrooms, the bathrooms. There is nothing that we do. It's 100% done. Now the cool thing is that once all this marketing is done for the house, it's stored on our website, so the agent can go in there and say, hey, I really wanted to change this photo. I don't like that photo. They can go in and edit these postcards, brochures, what have you. So it's again, it's done for the agent. The agent does not have to think about it. And again, as far as a retention and a recruiting tool, if we're talking to agents at other companies that don't have this type of automation, and people that are at our company are thinking about leaving and they would lose this type of service, I think it helps. You know, it's definitely something that we believe in.
Here's the thing, as we know, and Rick can speak to this as well, getting the agent to focus on vital work versus trivial work is imperative daily, and that's why the daily success habits are such an important part of what we do. But having the automation set up so that when you get a listing, we don't have to recreate it. It's automatically done, like you said, while you were sleeping, really speaks to the fact that what we all subscribe to as master coaches, and that is something that's systematic, that pretty much is measurable, because then the seller can see it, speaks to the fact that you can actually articulate this kind of information at the listing presentation and during the course of the listing, and you can monitor it. So it's a great opportunity. And one other initiative that I'd like you to speak about is our top 50. And if you've been on the RISMedia calls before, we often talk about how to leverage our top 50 when it comes to the 50 people in our lives that would give us one referral a year, which can translate to as many as 86 transactions. Now, consistency is the piece to that, but you've got a special twist on this one, Nate, and I'll bet our listeners would love to hear what that is.
Well, you know, being a coach and coaching agents to utilize the top 50 program, and knowing how important it is to take your top 50 clients, you know, and treat them just a little bit different, you know, it was so impactful. And when I started doing that in my residential business, I could see a part of the business that I was not paying attention to. I was treating my top people the same as I was treating the entire herd, if you will. So I thought, why not implement that in our company? We have 150 agents, so I decided to just go ahead and create the top 50 of our agents, and I have 2 other managers that focus on the other 250 sets. And I'm just doing a little more outreach, if you will. I'm really trying to maybe even get into the detail of the old Swim with the Sharks, Harvey McKay, and his 66 questions, and trying to learn more and more about my agents, more so than any time in the history of owning the company. So this is a new initiative, but it's really going deep with people, you know, going out to dinner with them, you know, going out to lunch, sitting down, talking to them about a business plan, just a little more outreach on my part, which will force me to connect. I think Rick said it earlier, and Rick, I mean, I took a lot of notes when Rick was speaking, but one of the things that he did say is you have to make sure that people are not going out the back door. And people do, you know, people, sometimes somebody else wants your top agents and they're whining and dining them. Okay, so if you are not relevant in your current agents' lives, you know, even going back to Facebook, when Facebook first came out, I had all my agents on there, and I was just being a voyeur so I could see change. And if something happened with their children, I wanted to acknowledge them. Again, going back to one of our core values, recognition. Whatever we can recognize our agent doing something good in the community, it's important. But with this top 50, it's given me 50 of the 150 agents we have, a third of them, to really dive deep. At the same time, why other people in my company are taking care of the other 100.
Well, I just want to clarify. The top 50 in regular business is taking top 50 that you know, like, and trust, who you know unequivocally would give you one referral a year. You've taken that and gone to the top 50 agents within your company, and you're actually executing top 50 initiatives on a monthly basis to connect with them, to keep them leveraging their sphere of influence to bring in more agents, or to make sure that they are keeping track of their top 50?
Yes.
Okay.
So, the main thing is, at least for the selfishness of myself, it's to, to keep them in my company, but also to have them help me grow our company. One of the initiatives that we started a year and a half ago was opening up a title company and allowing our agents to buy into the title company. At first, some of the agents did not want to buy in for several reasons, but the ones that did buy in, it's been a win-win. So one of our initiatives is building wealth. As being an agent for 31 years, and the community that we live in, agents work very hard for their money, but most of the agents that I see really, spend all their money. It's real easy, to spend money on a lot of different things, such as online lead generation, pay-per-click to generate leads. At the end of the year, some very successful agents spend all their money producing. And, one of the things as a top producing agent, you have staff, you have marketing, you have everything that a brokerage has, but maybe on a smaller level. And at the end of the day, if they are not managing their money, it creates a challenge, right? So I think by getting in with the top 50 to help mentor them in many ways, building their business, introducing them about the top 50 campaign for their business, but it's really to be relevant with our agents. When I opened up the real estate company 19 or 17 years ago, the mindset was to go out and hire experienced agents and let them do the business the way they want to do it. Today, it's evolved to being almost going back, Terry, to maybe 50 years ago when we had mom and pop shops where you had a broker kind of teaching and mentoring every step of the way of the agents in their business. We've really gone back to that, just with our training, our complete agent development, the technologies that we use, the mastermind meeting, the wealth building opportunities, the top 50 we talked about. And we have numerous events throughout the year from and this is where everybody's invited to, not just the top 50. Tomorrow we have a guest speaker coming in tomorrow that wrote the book, Wealth Can't Wait. We purchased 200 books. It's helping to develop our agents. At the same time, we have an outreach to agents that are on our recruit list that are being personally invited to come to the training as well. And again, giving them a book, but actually giving them a tool and some wealth and inspiration. And when they do have a need to change companies, we just want to be known as an option, and maybe the top option. Because I think when recruiting, people don't want to move because we want them to move. They usually move when something changes in a system. They're upset with the management, or a decision the broker made causes them to want to think about moving. So we're placing, we're owning a piece of their mind, let's say. When it comes time for them to make a decision to move, we want them to think about our brand.
There you go. Hey, Rick, are you still available for a quick question? Maybe not.
Hear me? I'm here.
There you are. I just with this with what Nate just mentioned, somebody had posted that this is about marketing. Well, helping the agent streamline their systems so that they create a more flow and less stress in their business is clearly one of the options in a recruitment and a retention platform. You spoke about mindset and culture. Nate's talking about the focus on the really appreciating the agent and recognition, which you also spoke to. As we wrap this up, before we open it up for questions, in your opinion, do you think that culture of inclusion and recognition is more important than, for instance, commission splits?
I think not necessarily in the beginning. I think in the long run, it always ends up being more important, because over all those years of recruiting and talking to people, there's lots of them that said I came for the split, but no one ever ends up saying I stayed for the same thing that they came for. And that's why it's vital. What Nate is doing is probably more revolutionary than 97% of the offices in the United States. Like, it's simple and yet revolutionary all at the same time.
Exactly. And I think that if you're on this call and you're interested in recruitment and retention strategies, we tend to we look at the tactical things like, you know, supplying great systems like Imprev to help them market and retain clients. Listings are the name of the game. You know, dominate the market with listings. That said, where they work, how the processes are deployed, the accountability and the coaching elements are probably the top reasons that people stay or leave. And I think that you both have done just a great job on helping us understand that training, treating your top 50 just like you would your top 50, which we've done other calls on, driving the culture of care, which was clear when Nate started speaking, and that mind shift and understanding when you hire eagles, you get eagles, and understanding that just putting somebody who doesn't subscribe to your core values and the level of commitment that you make to the client and the customer care isn't going to work in the long run. So I think you both have done a great job. Can we open this up for questions? We've got one question from Chris, who wants to know who pays for the Imprev or the marketing. Is that a company program or is it an individual agent program?
At our company, it's a company paid for service, right? So, and to be honest with you, it's not very expensive, but I think the value goes way beyond the expense of the program. Now, again, not all of our agents utilize the program, even though it's done for them. Some people have their own systems that they want to utilize, but it's there for the people that want to use it. And in crunch time, again, there's no better. You know, one of the things I think we need to do better as brokers when we have tools like that is to make sure that we're training and coaching and showing the benefit. You know, without knowing the benefit and tracking the results, you know, agents do what they want to do. You know, I think we can all relate to that.
I think that what happens is, and you know, I've been an agent forever.
A couple years.
A couple hundred to be exact, but here's the thing, and Bill, I really appreciated the fact that one of the newer versions is going to have an open house campaign, especially with Facebook, and the price we like to call it the new offering price if you're not in Canada, and the reason is because so many agents don't have that system in place where that gives you the opportunity to offer differentiated services, and so. And are they available now? I got one of the questions I got is that new level of listing support available now through Imprev?
It is. We're actually rolling that out to our client base as we speak.
Okay, well, how timely. That's just lovely.
Yeah.
One of the questions, and thank you for bringing it like 30 years later, though. You know, I mean, it would have been really good to have when the interest rates were like, what, 28%. One of our questions is this recorded? RISMedia does the most magnificent job of not only recording, these are available on YouTube, and I would tell you that if you did make it in late for whatever reason, hopefully you were closing a transaction or writing an offer, it will be available. Yes, it will. Is there any closing comments from Rick?
I just want to say what an amazing job you did at moderating this panel and doing questions that helped us to move it along in a more effective and productive way. I appreciate you so much.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's listen, if you're giving up your time and RISMedia is doing such a great job and Imprev is sponsoring it, we've got to make sure everybody walks away with some high overviews and some tactical. Nate, can you give us a closing comment?
Well, you know, our goal here is basically to have a profound impact on agents' lives, and that's not only our agents; that's all agents. The real estate industry has been very good to us, and giving back is what we like to do. So, if there's anybody that needs any help or wants to reach out, I'd be more than happy to help you.
And Nate, tell them how to reach you, your website, and the information there.
Okay, the best way would be by email, natem@remax.net.
There you go. And one of the questions that we had, who was that terrific first speaker? And it was Rick Jeha. And Rick, how can they reach you? Well, I know how to reach him, but I don't know if I can share that. Right, go on. It's Rick at Rick Jeha. That's G as in girl, EHA.com. And Imprev, if people want information about how to automate their systems so that they have happy sellers who refer them all the time, Mr. Yeaman, what's the best way to get information about the Imprev platform?
The best way to go is imprev.com. And if they want one of our account executives to talk through what a rollout of automation might look like, they can email us at sales@imprev.com.
Well, I want to thank everybody for being on the call and the great contributions we've had. If I've got a question, this is being recorded, so make sure you go to YouTube. It usually is on within the next day. We are happy to have you with us for our program on increasing relevancy, new ways to recruit and retain. If you have any questions at all, you can email us. And specifically me at terrymurphy.com. That's TERRI. I want everybody to have a great Thanksgiving. We have so much to be grateful for in this life, in this time, in this country. Thank you all for all of your contributions today. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.